Kethevane, you are our former Washington correspondent. You're now an international affairs editor here in Paris. You were there to cover the event, so just give us a little sense of where you were when this unfolded and what happened.
Well, look, I was there, as you said, to cover this event because we felt that this was going to be something big because Donald Trump was attending the dinner for the first time as president. And given his relationship with the media, with journalists, we thought it would be interesting to cover this event and to see what Donald Trump was going to say during his first speech at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And so I was at the location where people did live shots, so standing by the red carpet where you saw the arrivals. And I did my last live shot actually around 8 p.m. Local time. At 8:15, Donald Trump was on stage at the table. The dinner started. And then about 15 minutes later, we heard those gunshots. What you see there are images that I filmed right in the aftermath of the shooting and the apprehension of the suspect. But really what happened there was that we heard the gunshots, me and the few reporters who were still on their positions, and immediately Secret Service agents yelling, "Get down on the ground. Their shots fired, do not move." So we all ducked. We were on the ground waiting to see what would happen. And of course, being a reporter, I had two conflicting reactions. One was to sort of tell my family that I was okay because I knew that they would be watching. But the other one was to do my job. And so with my other phone, I was filming some of the images that you see there in case I got something on camera. And in these moments when there's a lot of stress, you don't really follow exactly like the type of length of time. So I think it was a few minutes. We very quickly got a message from Secret Service saying one suspect in custody. But at that time, we also didn't know whether there was another suspect maybe that was there. And then a few minutes later, they said that it was all clear. And that's when they told us, now you need to get out. So they checked if we were okay. And then they sort of kicked us out of what they called a crime scene at this moment. And that's when it was pretty interesting because you saw this movement of hundreds of journalists really being taken out outside of the hotel. In normal times, when you've just been in a sort of an attack or a shooting, your reaction is to leave. Our reaction as reporters was to stay as close as possible to the hotel, and we had the police trying to push us back, but we were all trying to either do live shots, report, call our newsrooms to say exactly what information we had been able to gather. But it was very quick in the sense that between the gunshots and the all clear, there were maybe just a few minutes. But when you are in this situation, you don't really know what is going on, what can happen, what will happen. And what was also interesting is that for a time, there was this question of whether or not the dinner was going to pick up, because remember, Donald Trump's first reaction was to post on Truth Social and to say the show must go on in a way, and he wanted to stay there and to keep up with that dinner. Eventually, the Secret Service said, absolutely not, we are going to leave, and that's when he gave that press conference from the White House. But it was really a very odd, stressful, and at the same time historic moment as a journalist.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting to hear your first-hand account of it. Of course, we're so happy that you're okay, Kethevane. In terms of the security at the site, I mean, what did you see? Sometimes, when we're reporting in countries that we think of as being more dangerous than the United States, when you go into a hotel, you have to put your bags through security, and there is checking that happens. Lots of high-profile people there. Obviously, the US president among them. So what was security like when you were there?
Well, look, there are a lot of questions now as to whether or not this event was secure enough, given who was there. To explain to our viewers, this ballroom, this event was held in the Hilton Hotel, which is a huge hotel. And there were people who had rented out rooms in this hotel who participated in the dinner, but there were also people from outside who simply were in Washington at the time, and those people stayed. And actually, the suspect also rented out a room in this hotel. Nobody going into the hotel was being checked by security for their bags, for example. Obviously, Secret Service, the FBI, and all of that sweep the hotel for things like bombs. You had sniffer dogs going around the hotel throughout the night. When it comes to the event itself, as you can see here, I was around that X mark on this, what is called the terrace level. That's where the red carpet was. That's where you enter. There are no metal detectors. People going onto the red carpet were not screened. I was screened because I was a journalist. I got my bags open, sniffer dogs, everything was checked. You see there the red circle, that's where the suspect was apprehended. He was basically down the hallway from where I was, but he was apprehended when he tried to crash through the metal detectors and the sort of security barrier that was set up because, as you see there, stairs down to the ballroom. The ballroom itself is one level below, and so you first had to go through those metal detectors before you were able to go down the stairs to the ballroom, which means that the suspect was apprehended one level above where Donald Trump and all the other officials were. So I think we should look at this in two different ways. And there you see the lower level where the ballroom is. If you look at it from the point of view of whether or not the president's security was at any point in jeopardy, the answer is pretty much no, because the Secret Service did its job. The president was nowhere near the suspect, was never in danger. None of the other officials were in danger. The Secret Service moved extremely quickly. The tactical unit moved extremely quickly. So that aspect is what the Secret Service is for. They are there to protect the president and the other principals. They are not there to protect the public. If you think about the broader security of the event, given the fact that it was not just the principals, but also personalities, politicians from Congress, from both sides, as well as journalists, but also other high-profile figures, then there's a question about security. Because given the circumstances, given the context and the current tensions in the United States, this suspect could have very well been someone who wanted to shoot journalists, for example. And if that had been the case, this probably would have ended much more differently because there was no security screening. So now the question is twofold. Donald Trump is using this already to justify what he had decided months ago, which is building that ballroom on the White House campus, because now he's saying this is proof that nowhere is safe besides the White House campus. That is a possibility. The other question that we have now is whether or not there needs to be more security, even for the general guests coming to these types of events. Should there have been, as you were saying, metal detectors outside or by the entrance of the hotel, every entrance of the hotel, whether it was the lobby, the red carpet, the terrace, all of that is now being put into question. But I think that those are two separate elements. The Secret Service is there, once again, to protect the president and the principals. They are not there, unfortunately, to protect people like me. But given the importance of the people that were at this event, there are, of course, questions and will likely come into play when they decide, if they do decide to hold this dinner again, or for next year's event. How do we guarantee that an event like this is actually secure?